And we are live. Thank you for everyone joining at last minute. Can I just make sure we get a thumbs up that you can hear me okay? Everything's all right there, as it appears to be here. First person to send in a message is Nilani. I'd love to see you do another talk with Michael from Garabandal. You and I both. I sent him a message as well as a few other people, some emails just in the past couple of days, and I'm waiting to hear back. And that just reminds me, thank you, Nilani, that I may cover an email I've received from someone based on what the topic is. So I'm just writing down my little reminder, see if I remember it. I'll keep them anonymous, of course, as it's private correspondence. But anyway, thanks for joining in. Thanks for the confirmations there, folks. Last minute decision to come on. As you know, it's been about 3 weeks since my last video, and I've done a couple back then with Father Chris Aylar. Xavier Aral is always a good friend of the channel, and Barry Mallet, with all that's happening between Ireland and I would say here in the UK now as well. So many things to cover. In these past 3 weeks, I've just been busy getting on with work and things, and I think I'm coming up and down a little bit with the videos, trying to keep focused, but there's a lot happening in life. And even last week, for 3 straight days, I was so tired, but a good tired, because it was the Flame of Love UK conference, and I was there. I was giving a talk, some of which I may share with you for the Times on a presentation in a few moments. But to be there talking, Father Chris Aylar's in the audience listening, and then I'm listening to his talks, and then having a couple of days with Father James Blunt. First time meeting both priests in person. Absolutely amazing retreat. Or well, a conference really. Good talks, and overall, just a great pleasure to be with so many people of the faith, and to see it must have been at least 30 people come up to me in the first day saying they watched the channel, and that's quite new to me still, even though I've been doing it a couple of years and a few people have came up to me in the past, but that was probably the most at one time. And I'm used to being here in my humble abode, in my own room, doing these videos. So it's great to know that there is a positive effect happening out there, what I'm doing, and please God, that's all it'll ever be. Has to be him, has to be his will, and not my own. And my conscience wouldn't allow me to do it for my own gain, for whatever that may be. Recognition, don't care for it. I've had my reward if that's what I'm after, as the gospel would say. But I pray that that conviction that was in my heart from a few years ago, and the hesitancy of doing the videos, but now I'm doing them. The conviction 2 years ago leaving Medjugorje made it clear to me that it's all or nothing. It has to be. And since then, that's when everything's came together. That's when people have subscribed. That's where I've connected with people from Ireland to America to Australia, all bringing the same discussions, all bringing the alert to the times that we're living in, but with a joy and an excitement. And it's excitement indeed for all the bad that's happening, which I'm going to cover shortly. I've never felt more excited than I have done this past few months, especially because so many things are coming together. And it was Mary Lowley's son who I met a few years ago in Garabandal. I even quoted it earlier today to someone else, and I forgot the Latin yet again. But the Romans used the saying, and it translates as things speed up towards the end. And for the first week, I've actually, excuse me, for this past week or so, for the first time, I've really felt as if I'm trying to catch up with the amount of things happening at the same time. I don't know about you, but I really do feel it's all happening at once. And it's more and more and more confirmations. So things really do speed up towards the end. What's the end? It's not the end of the world, by far, it's not. But it's the end of the era. We're definitely into a new era as 2025, the Jubilee year. The calendar makes it so, if you know the ancient Jewish cycles, the Jubilee years, etc. But then you have the private revelations, the apparitions, prophecies, all confirming it. It's a hand in a glove for me. So I want to just get into that while you're watching. I see more people are joining us. Please make sure you hit the thumbs up, like, subscribe, and share the video. That's you casting the nets and doing your part to reach many others. Now, what do I want to speak about today? Like I say, I haven't got a great deal of preparedness. I've got a screen share, and hopefully I'll have things up in a moment. We had a warm-up warning last year when Israel and Iran had a little tit-for-tat with missiles and drones, and out the blue, Israel just launched a great offensive strike against Iran, and it's now retaliated against Israel, and now things are starting to move with the UK, American assets, France. The leaders are speaking up that where they'll sit in as a defence for Israel. But yet the UK didn't even know it was going to happen. Israel didn't tell them, apparently, from what I've seen in reports. Now, Iran and Israel's one thing, then the UK comes into another. Why am I talking about that just now? Because of prophecy. If you are new to this channel, you're in for a treat. If you have heard my videos before, you know everything's getting confirmed as I speak. And it's all Catholic prophecy, it's all in the timeline as again it's been featured. But for those who may be new, I'll go over a little recap shortly. But Marie-Julie Jahenny, one of the greatest mystics in the entire church, she is taking the crown for me right now because of the amount of prophecies, the amount of details that are happening as clear as the words she written to the letter. And Xavier Aral, in his great book Revelations, which was published a few years ago now, had all this at the ready. And since that book's been published, since he's been talking to me and others over the last few years, we are seeing literally the unfolding of the prophecies, which tells us the timing of the books, the timing of the YouTube channels, the timing of everyone getting out there and making this work and share it to alert as many people as possible to the times we're living in. God's about to turn everything upside down. The time of the Antichrist is very much in its place. We're just waiting for a few other things to happen, and then we're going to see the triumph of the Immaculate Heart. So that's why we have to be excited. But Marie-Julie Jahenny expressively said that when the long-reigning Queen of England would pass, the new sovereign on the throne of England, who we now know as Charles, would witness the disintegrating relationship between Israel and Persia, as she called it. Israel, Persia, and England. Now, why would England get mentioned in that prophecy rather than America or whatever? I don't understand, to be honest. But back then in her day, before 1948, Israel wasn't declared a nation yet by the United Nations, which happened in 1948. Persia, as she called it, that's your modern day Iran, that's your Palestine, that's your Syria, probably parts of Turkey. If you look at the history of ancient Persia and the Babylonians and whatever other time, the geography's changed all the time. So we've seen the Queen passing. The new sovereign on the throne, Charles, is witnessing this last year tit for tat, but now this big surprise one. But this is them up in the ante now. Why? Because Israel, and I think it was in Al Jazeera, just said today, they've made Gaza now number 2, secondary. Their focus, their primarily war zone focus is now Iran. And it's only been 48 hours or so since the surprise attack. So they've done everything they had to do with Gaza and Palestine. This is when you know it's orchestrated, isn't it? But it's the prophecy part that gets me, how it's coming to fruition to the letter. And there's more to the Marie-Julie Jahenny's context with that, is the fact she says not only with the long-reigning Queen of England passing, this will be happening with Israel and Iran, but mass immigration into the continent from the Mohammedans in particular. And again, it's been covered many times in the channel. It's all in context, and then you bring in the Trefontane visionary Bruno and his prophecies of the same thing. Blessed Elena Ielio, Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich. You start bringing in certain apparitions which are a bit more where we have to work things out and take a logical guess at it, but Marie-Julie Henny to the letter has made it specifically clear. These are the ones that are coming to my head to start with. So I was just looking over a few things. I've got some notes here. The priority, the relationship. So yeah, the UK relationship, why is that part of the Iran-Israel thing? Well, last week, the UK, was it a sanction of 2 Israeli diplomats or something like that? Israel, of course, not happy with it. And whatever else was happening there, that Israel didn't inform the UK that this attack was about to happen, when the UK has very much been based in the Middle East since 9/11, helping Israel, the Americans, and the alliances. So why would the UK be kept out of that? That says a lot about Israel, not in a good place with the UK. But Iran's now warning the UK, France, and America that if they do anything in any way to defend Israel or attack Iran directly, they will be attacking and retaliating against all these bases in the Middle East. So now Russia's backing up Iran, of course, and we know Russia's key to the prophecies. Father Malachi Martin, third secret of Fatima reader, specifically said, and I've got it in a quote, I may as well get it up here, I'm sure it's on this slide. He basically stated, it is, like I say, I haven't done this, so make sure it works correctly. Now, in regards to the message of Fatima, it still stands. It still stands. The errors of Russia are now abroad, and they are abroad. Russia will be converted finally by my Immaculate Heart, she said. And it will be, she said. Now, here's the key part. So Russia is within the plans. Why? He was asked. His response, that would take me too far afield into papal secrets. Why Russia and Kiev are involved in the final solution of this problem? But they are. They are part and parcel, and it's really God's choice. And it's purely and simply God's choice. He has his own favourite solutions. I wouldn't have chosen the Russians or Kiev or the East for salvation. But salvation is to come from the East for us all. And that was Father Malachi in an interview 22nd of March 1997. So 20 years before the centenary of Fatima, 2017, he's telling us then that the final solution is between Russia and Kiev, which is part and parcel, and the East. And look how it's been playing out. And it was what's his name on the US Grace Force, the priest. It's one of my favourite channels. I would love to speak with Doug Barry and Father. It's on the tip of my head as well. But he said something amazing as well. He's good with the numbers and dates, I've noticed, about that year of mercy delayed with the centenary of Fatima before the pandemic, etc. But he said the one the other day that really caught my eye and ear. It was to do with the mark of the beast 666, and he calculated again as he does. I forget. I think it was to do with the time of the Pachamama stuff that came in line with the anniversary of Akita and Fatima. But if you added on 6 months later came the pandemic, 6 years later was stuff with where we're at with now with Russia, Ukraine, and Israel and that. And no, it was something to do with 666. But basically, it's the 6 years, the 6 months, and the 6th day. It led from then till the death of Pope Francis. He worked it out in the ways, so I need to look it up again, which I thought was great. And it's not the first one I've heard about dates and countries adding like that. But obviously we're still waiting for that great lawless man of sin who's going to come as the saviour, because this is the chaos starting. I'm reading things this week where Prime Minister Keir Starmer, the UK is basically another country now signing over its legal rights to the World Health Organization. So the next time there's a lockdown declared and the World Health Organization takes charge, all these countries legally have to abide with what's been told of them. what's being ordered. So we're losing our rights and our freedoms more and more. And I've always said, go back 30 years of movies, anything Hollywood's predicted about these times is coming true. So it makes you wonder all along how big the plan is, how long it is, and who's involved, and who's got the power to make it happen generation after generation with the same mind, the same focus, the same belief, especially when they're all power, rich, hungry people in it for themselves. And Our Lady warned us about the stonecutters, didn't she? Way, way back in the time. Even, I think it's a different one. Back in the time with Our Lady of Good Success, yeah. She told us how it happened from the swinging 60s. And Catherine Emmerich also did as well, in this quote I've got here. In the centre of hell I saw a dark and horrible looking abyss, and into this Lucifer was cast. After being first strongly secured with chains, I was likewise told, if I remember rightly, that he will be unchanged for a time, 50 or 60 years before the year of Christ 2000. So 50 years would have been 1950, 60 years prior would have been 1940s. And that's when he started to get loosened up. So obviously, as you see with Pope Leo XIII there, we get the St. Michael the Archangel prayer, thanks to his mystical experience of October 13th, 1884. And when God gave the devil the time and the power to test the church, it was either 75 to 100 years. When did that begin? How many years has he actually got entirely? But if he was starting to get loosened around the 1940s, I think I read somewhere else it might have been in stages. I'm not sure. I need to look that one up. But that's the one I found recently. Now, we know 1940s, that's where we have in record before the US Senate Committee, Bella Dodd, who wrote the School of Darkness book. You can get it free PDF online. And I haven't read it, but others are speaking about it, including Father Chad Ripperger and others like that. So I'll listen to anything he says any day. And she's on record stating how the communists put 1,000 homosexual seminarians or KGB agents into the seminary. And by the 1960s, 20 years later, some had reached the status of cardinal. Now, if that's the case by the 1960s, Our Lady of Quito, Ecuador, as I just showed you, focused shortly after the middle of the 20th century. We're round about the same time here with her and Anne Catherine Emmerich, and I dare say others, and what happened in the 1960s. In society, we had sex, drugs and rock and roll, which started taking away the customs, the morals. Now we're seeing more and more intensely how it's focused on the children, just like Our Lady told us and warned us about centuries before. But in the church, we had Vatican II. Now, with Our Lady warning us all along, and then Fatima was the big one. The miracle of Fatima came 33 years to the day of Leo XIII's vision. October 13th, 1884 was his experience. And then October 13th again, 1917, was the miracle of Fatima. And that made it clear the woman clothed in the sun, the woman of Revelation, was on the fight. And this was a big battle between her and the devil, between her and the Antichrist. And I think when we go back far enough, as I've done with my little graphics here, why is it getting so more intense? The reason it's getting intense is because the sun is setting on the 6th millennium. Now again, Blessed Anne Catherine Emmerich spoke about another vision where Jesus was 31 years of age, and in this vision he was teaching the scribes how their calendars were off by so many years, and it was actually 4,028 years since the birth of Adam. Now, if he's 31, and it really is the year 4028, 2 years later, it would be 4030, and he's 33 years of age when he goes through his passion, death, resurrection, ascension into heaven. So that's 4030. And I know we're at 2025 since the birth of the Lord, right? And 33 years, so we could be off a couple of years. But just for our argument's sake, we're roughly 2,000 years later, which is 6,030 years since Adam. And obviously the 2,000 and odd years since Christ. And we count the 2025 years in our calendar. But the 6,030 since Adam, okay? If 1,000 day, no, is it? If a day was like 1,000 years are like the day to the Lord, as it's in Scripture. How many days were in creation? 7. So look at the screen. They've got numbered circles. We've got colour-coded pairs. If they're millenniums each, think of one day as 1,000 years. So if we're coming up to 6,030 years since Adam, roughly, that's 6,000 and odd years since creation. 6,000 years is 6 days. The 6th day in Genesis, we are created on the same day as the beasts. Now, one of the very first Bible lessons you would ever get, whether it's from Scott Hahn or Jeff Caven's The New Bible Timeline, or at university where I studied a few years at seminary, typology is one of the things that comes first. And one of the things I'll highlight, at least on creation, is if everything is good when God created day 1, day 2, and so forth, and he's creating the order, why is it in day 6, we human beings, when it was very good, he created us in his image and likeness, but he created us in the same day as the beasts. Key word for the 6th day. Beasts and man are created on the 6th day. Now, they'll explain why, because on the 7th day, God rested, and we get told that's him bringing us into his covenant, a kinship. Do we go into the covenant with him on the 7th day, or do we stay in the 6th day like the beasts who don't acknowledge the Lord, who roam about endlessly, eating, gluttonous, sex, and all the rest of what animals do? Irrationality, like the beasts. Or do we acknowledge God, embrace our humanity as made in his image and likeness, and go with him into the 7th day? Now remember, one day is 1,000 years. So if we're in the 6,000 and odd years since Adam, according to this vision with Anne Catherine Emmerich, 6,000 and something years is 2,000 years with Christ. We're counting the 2,000 years, but adding it all, when he's telling the scribes, it's 4,028 years since Adam, and he's 31 years of age. 4,030 is 2 years later when he goes through his passion, death, and resurrection. 4,030 plus the 2,000 and odd years now is 6,000 years, right? Over 6,000. That's 6 days. The day 6. The day with the beasts and man. Now it brings us to 6,030. But 2030, as we count it, is like 6,030. We're coming towards the end of the 6th day of the 6th millennium. In this Jubilee year, we are about to enter into the 7th day, the 7th millennium. The era of peace, the era of the living in divine will. Because as the arrows indicate, the first years of creation, the millennium, then 3 and 4 is the time of the law. The 5th and 6th is the age of grace since Jesus. And Jesus came and did everything with day 5, day 6. These are the 2,000 years since Christ. We are coming towards the end of day 6. And we've got the arrow taking us into 7th. We are on the bridge, entering into the new era. The era of peace, the era of divine will, This is how close we are, folks. And as Derek Williams explained months ago in the videos, remember the Jubilee years of 50 years. Every 50 years is a Jubilee year. The 7 weeks of the 7 years and so forth. Every 7 it was a rest, where it was the 7th day, the 7th year, and then doing it over 7 years was 49 years. They rested on the Jubilee year. It was the ram's horn that blew it. Now, ram's horn, the Hebrew word, which I forget, translates into our language as Jubilee. The ram's horn is Jubilee. So I'm thinking with the new Ark of the Covenant, our Blessed Mother, who's telling us we're walking into the triumph and the priests are going to be the bridge into the triumph. Who was it that carried the Ark of the Covenant into the Promised Land? That was the priests, and I don't have the image here right now. That was the priests taking it into the Promised Land. And it's happening again because what goes around comes around. You're starting to see typology. So 2025 is this Jubilee year. It's coincidentally, or God incidentally, coming now at the end of the Malachi list of popes, which I don't put more on other than the fact it's just conveniently after 500 years since the publication of those list of popes, the final numbered pope was Benedict. However, we get Francis, and people are saying, is this the prophesied 2 popes of Anne Catherine Emmerich? Well, I would say so, not just because there's 2, but the years it fell in. 3, point number 3. Since Pope Francis died on Easter Monday, we now know for the first time in 500 years there is a gap between the last numbered Pope, who's Benedict, and the angelic Pope prophesied to lead the flock through a great time of trial and persecution, Petrus Romanus, Peter the Roman. I'm becoming a bit more convinced that Pope Leo XIV may be that Pope, or he's at least the bridge to the next one. And I'm seeing what I think is an emerging contrast that's getting me pondering. Now, this is private thoughts that I'm now about to share with you. I haven't done videos on this. And I state for the record, as I always do, I've never publicly judged Pope Francis once. I've never joined the ranks of others who have done it. I've cut off the videos from watching it because every time that poor man had to say something, had to do something, had to blow his nose, there was always someone there ready to ridicule him and break it down as if they know better. So I gave up the negativity, I gave up watching it. Did I have concerns with Pachamama coinciding with the Fatima and Nikita anniversary of October 13th? Absolutely. Am I hearing others speaking about the confusion of the times and what's this about marriage and family is an ideal? What's this about marriage and divorced and Amoris Laetitia? What's this about Fiducia Supplicans and the whole continent of African bishops saying no to it? Of course I had concerns and I pondered it, but may he rest in peace. Now, he dies in this Jubilee year, a prophetically timed Pope, and I just find that when he's passed, it also come at another great time, and I'm just want to get my other slides up here, make sure this is working the right one. There we go. He is the Pope that saw so many things. Like I say, on the top left there, working the way down, we'll go anti-clockwise. He's at the end of Malachi's list of popes. In fact, he doesn't have the number. Now that he's dead, we know he's not Peter the Roman, and Benedict was the last numbered pope. So where was he in the list? Where does he fit? I don't know. That's the problem. And this is the emerging contrast I'm noticing with Pope Leo XIV. One of the best things his brother said when he was first elected, and we're seeing interviews coming with him, his brother says he'll massage things out. He'll massage things out. And the very first couple of weeks of his pontificate, the first appointment Pope Leo XIV has made, he get rid of the controversial bishop who was placed by Francis into the University of John Paul II Institute on Marriage and Family. I keep in touch with one or two professors from Rome since my seminary days and others. And even a couple of years ago, they says that it's ruined what's happening and what's the new curriculum and all the rest of it's happening. John Paul II's theology of the body was getting distorted with the teachings and this change, along with everything else people were wondering about. Pope Leo got that bishop out and he's put in a very traditionalist man. Great. Second, I was reading on the couch the other day one of the quotes of Pope Leo speaking about marriage and family and how it's not an ideal, it's greater than an ideal, being a sacrament, and the marriage between a man and a woman being open to faithful, fruitful love. And before I got to finish that saying, my wife just went, John Paul II, John Paul II, and gave a high five. And yeah, he's massaging it out ever so gently, but he's making it clear where marriage and family is. And if I see that in a contrast way of what's been delivered publicly from the previous pontificate, it comes to a choice, which one do I like better and what's been said. I have to go with Leo. Have to. Is bang on with John Paul II. The fact he's changed that appointment back to the university, it's like a restoration. And what did Lucia Fatima say about marriage and family? The final battle between the Lord and the kingdom of Satan will be about marriage and the family. Don't be afraid, because whoever works for the sanctity of marriage and family will always be fought against and opposed in every way, because this is the decisive issue. Nevertheless, Our Lady has already crushed his head. Crushing the head. Genesis 3:15. After the fall, the Lord's cast an enmity between her and Satan, between her and the Antichrist, and she's about to crush his head. Now that reminds me, before I go off on too much of a tangent, Dr. Peter Howard told us in a video a while back that when Guadalupe came about and the Aztecs were speaking something like Huatrasupe or something, whatever it meant back then, it literally translated as a woman who crushes the serpent. So with this prophetic time and the mystery of where Pope Francis now fits in it, I'm going to come back to that. But we're ending day 6, the 6th millennium. We're ready to choose. Are we going into day 7 with the Lord, the era of peace? Or are we staying in day 6 with the beast of Revelation? 6, 6, 6. That's why everything in the Bible with 6 is evil. Goliath was like 6 cubits high, 600 concubines for Solomon. Everything with 6 was bad, and that goes back to the creation and the 6th day with the beasts and humanity. And the Antichrist, 6, 6, 6, a trinity of evil. And now we've got the choice on day 6, the 6th millennium. This Jubilee year's kicking everything off, as expected. Do we stay and take on whatever it is we have to do, as the Catechism tells us, 675, and the Catechism? We'll have an ultimatum. We're going to go through hard times, no doubt about it. And are we going to take the easy road and accept whatever's given us? Are we going to stand up to the challenge and be completely out of our comfort zone? If we're going to see any of this stuff building up, where we're still on the bridge, we might not see the triumph on this earth, but we'll certainly have it in heaven. There is no doubt all of us are going to be challenged with our faith. Do we stay and abide so not to cause offence or upset or feel isolated from our neighbours? Or are we going to actually be ready for martyrdom? And I'm going to be blunt about it, because there's no point in beating around the bush. The decision's coming soon. And this is where we are. The sun is setting on day 6, the 6th millennium. You with me with that? Now, in these final years, remember, 6,030 since Adam, if we were going with Anne Catherine Emmerich's vision of Jesus correcting the scribes with the years and all that. It's the great reset of 2030, isn't it? But what about the divine reset? This is why we're hopeful. Look, 2029 to 2033, 100th year since the request of Russia's consecration in 1929. That's why I've put that in for that 100th year. But Rue de Bac will be coming up for 200 years in 2030. That's the Miraculous Medal, the Immaculate Conception, which is key with the Americas, Lourdes, and obviously Grace. Medjugorje's coming up for its 50th anniversary in 2031. Garabandal will be 70 years in 2031. Divine Mercy will be 100 years in 2031. And Guadalupe, the one who crushes the serpent, is 500 years in 2031. Now, to me, if you think the 1500s, where she appeared in Quito, Ecuador, warning us about these times in the 60s onwards, and as the times arrived and we saw it all and where we're at now of the ramifications all these years later, the 1500s, without trying to explain it too much and get you bogged down here, if you look at red number 6, the way you work out those 6,000 years is from the 1500s. Look at the 1500s as midday, and 2031 is the midnight of the 6th day. So this is where we are in time now, the final half of the day, 12 noon to 12 midnight, day 6, and we're just ready to get into day 7. And that's why everything's happening right now. The last 500 years has been the building up of this earth for the mystical body of Antichrist. And now she's about to crush his head. The toys are out the pram. These prophecies are all coming true at alarming speed. That really says what the Romans say. Things speed up towards the end, no doubt about it. Because we're at the end of the era. And the new era is sprouting. And if you think of the two tectonic plates, the old and the new era, they're coming together, causing the ruckus, causing the earthquakes, the chaos, till the old goes down and the new comes up. This is where we are. This is the birth pangs underway. No doubt about it. So, with that all being said then, how does this fit with Israel and Iran just because Marie-Julie Jeheni prophesied it, which so happened to happen after the Queen of England passed, and all the rest of it? I've already covered why so many prophecies fit with Pope Francis. And this emerging contrast, like I was saying a few moments ago, Pope Leo's massaging things out with the marriage and family. He's already met the Patriarch of the Orthodox Church twice in these first couple of weeks. He's been on the phone with Putin already. He's known as a great bridge builder. He also declared himself Roman a couple of weeks ago. Is he Peter the Roman? Now, my friend Robert Nugent, I should have had this at the ready. If you put in the way it was written in Latin of Cardinal Robert Prevost, and take the name Leo on that, the way it was in Italian newspaper, it's like an anagram. You can literally use his name into Peter the Roman. I need to double check it, but it's on my friend's channel. So what's the chances of that as well? But there's more. This is the beauty of it. Again, Francis saw so many of the things unfolding with the Queen of England passing, the centenary of Fatima. He did an attempt at the consecration where he mentioned Kiev in Russia, and I know there's always going to be debates whether it was him, John Paul, or if it's still to happen. I'm not getting into it, but he's also the one who's been seen, one of the two popes of Anne Catherine Emmerich. The 4 popes of Garabandal also ended with Benedict, so where does this man fit? I think, for all the confusion, there's also maybe a sign that it was an extended time of mercy, and it so happens he dies at Easter on the Jubilee year, and that's it. We're into the era now, things are kicking off, and we're only halfway through it. So, again, with all being said, this merging contrast I'm going to put into play with my little timeline here, because there's still old parts of it that still make sense. So La Salette down at the bottom left. I don't know how to get this bigger, sorry. I think it might be coming out of size. See, it doesn't matter with the screen size, it's about how it's going to fit. Anyway, I've done all this one before. La Salette's in the blue, which is just off to the left bottom corner. We can't fully see. Sorry, folks. I'll get the full one done when it's there. Popping up in 1850, she was born was Marie Julie Geheny. And of course, we've got Fatima occurring in 1917. And they're all going from left to right. They're all arriving at 2025 because, regardless of when they were in the past, they are still important for now. Same with Garabandal, Akita, and Medjugorje. Now, we're going to go straight in with the four popes of Garabandal. After John the 23rd, Our Lady said there would be four more popes. One would have a short reign. There's one, which was Pope Paul VI, John Paul, who was 33 days, John Paul II, and Benedict. There are your four popes after John the 23rd. Done. But, keeping us in suspense, we get the retirement of Benedict, and then we get Pope Francis. In this time of confusion, who's the Pope? Is it really Benedict still? Is it not? Why is he still wearing the ring and the white robe? Why is Francis not putting PP at the end of his title and all this stuff? And so many things going on. But this was the prophecy of Anne Catherine Emmerich. And like the previous slides shown, Francis saw so many things. He even went to the port of Marseille in France a couple of years ago, on about getting all the immigrants in and welcoming them in and all this stuff. That's the port that Marie-Julie Geheny saying is to be destroyed either by the Russians or the Mohammedans. And this pontiff, this prophetically timed pontiff, is there. And he's saying the opposite of what's been prophesied. Off to the left there are the children of La Salette, Pope Pius IX. Now remember, Pius IX, remember the 1500s is midday of day 6. We've Guadalupe, we've got Quito, Ecuador. As time's going on, we get Knock. Then we have La Salette, Knock. And in between the apparitions and the dogmas of the Immaculate Conception, and then St. Joseph is the patron, like the protector of the universal church, Pius IX gave us those two dogmas. So the Immaculate Conception dogma, Our Lady appears in Lourdes, I am the Immaculate Conception. But then when he gives us the title of St. Joseph as the protector of the universal church, a few years later, Joseph is with Our Lady and St. John at Knock, Ireland. And if you look at Knock, Ireland, and you look at Guadalupe, both of those, in the silence of symbolism, they're the most apocalyptic symbolised apparitions of Our Lady, I would say. And they're still important for now. It's all Book of Revelation, isn't it? So that's why he's in there, along with Pope Leo XIII has been over the St. Michael prayer. And both these popes, I believe, knew Marie-Julie Geheny. And what did she say when these things would kick off? When the long reigning Queen of England would pass. There she is at the top. She passed under the pontificate of Pope Francis. These time the two popes, the end of Malachi's list, the end of the Garabandal four popes. That's why she's there. And Francis saw so much, as did Benedict in his retirement. But La Salette, even back in 1846, is still important for now. Why? Well, one thing the young boy said in a letter to Pope Leo, I think it was at the time, and to the Count of Chambord, or whoever it was, it's in Xavier's book. It was only discovered in the Vatican archives in 1999 by sheer accident, signed and sealed and all the rest of it. And the young boy Maxim of La Salette said all these events should occur by the late 20th century, 1980s, 1990s. But if humanity responds well to heaven's call, it will be delayed into the 2000s. Now, if you just look below Francis's picture there, above the blue line of La Salette, what happened in the late 20th century? Gorbachev signed things over, the wall came down, the Iron Curtain, Soviet communism was over, great time of grace rather than a cold nuclear war. Why? Because Our Lady appeared in Medjugorje just a few weeks after the Pope was shot on the Fatima anniversary, May 13th, 1981. And she appeared June 24th in Medjugorje. I'm calling humanity back to God for the last time. Medjugorje. Russia will come to glorify God the most. These are quotes from the early days at Medjugorje. That's why I believe it's been delayed until now. And look at the context of the Queen passing, Iran and Israel, Russia and Ukraine, the final solution, remember, according to Father Malachi Martin, who read it. All this now, this Jubilee year of all years, and now we have Pope Leo the 13th. There's so many things happening, folks, so many. Now, some I know I'm on repeat with it. Let me just come out of this one. You'll see the full screen. There we go. I'll take it back. That's the little bits that we're missing there. But you get it, don't you? You get it. Surely you must be seeing that after all this stuff, bringing it together. I'm just looking to see what else I've got to show up. Pope Leo's time, yeah, the emerging contrast. So see this I've got more about this emerging contrast, right? Why then, if he's massaging things out, we're seeing a contrast with the marriage and families I've already explained. I think Cardinal Burke apparently said, someone was telling me, he said, yeah, we've been in a storm with a ship with no rudder, and now Leo's going to be the rudder. Now that took me back straight away to John Bosco's vision where the Pope's guiding the ship through the storm with the attacks and the enemies on both sides, and then he's finding safe harbour in between the columns of Our Lady and the Eucharist on those pillars. He's guiding us towards calm. Is he the Pope, though, that's going to have to flee Rome? Because with everything happening in this final solution, with Russia and Kiev being part and parcel of it, in this prophetic time of Israel and Iran kicking off now, the ramifications are still going to come with that. But remember, Garabandal spoke about how not only were the four popes completed, and then we're into the new era, we're seeing that, but I'm starting to think back on a few things that was said that makes me question Pope Francis's pontificate. And I'm not saying that because I'm not saying he wasn't the Pope. I'm not saying he was bad. And like I declared earlier, I'm never judging the man, although I had my concerns. It's all about pondering in the heart. And our Blessed Mother, after the angel Gabriel came to her, and everything else that was said to her, even by Simeon's prophecy at the presentation, she pondered everything in her heart. And I think it's a great example in these times what we should be doing, because now it's the Queen of Prophets that's given us most of it. Ponder it. And what I'm pondering, as I'm now sharing publicly, is this emerging contrast. And I know others have used these quotes and things I'm about to say against Francis. I'm not doing it against him. I'm just pondering. The Fatima vision. The Fatima visions, it was Lucia who first wrote, we saw a bishop dressed in white, like it went before a mirror, like someone passed before a mirror. They had the impression it was the Holy Father. But later, as depicted in this image, they saw the Pope walking over a city half in ruins with halting step, going up the hill towards the cross, and blessing all the dead along the way, only then to be shot with bullets and arrows. A martyr Pope. And although John Paul II was shot on May 13th, 1981, that's almost like the precursor of the typology of what's coming around again. And this timeline of everything I'm saying already, in this Jubilee year of all years, I don't know if it's Pope Leo that's going to be the one that has to flee Rome, because he's 69 years of age. It's just under 20 years before he reaches the age Francis was before he died there. So if God spares him even 10 years, 15 years, I think it's a generous amount of time for prophecy-wise. If God spares him 10 years, he's definitely the Pope of prophecy, I believe, that's going to go to Moscow. And I think it'll be in 10 months before it'll be in 10 years. It's going to be sooner rather than later. That's my point. Because he's already spoke with Putin. He's already speaking with the Patriarch twice. He's trying to bring them to the table, even going back to the time of Nicaea, to work on an Easter date together. Because this year the calendars fell on Easter of the Jubilee year. Surprise, surprise. But they're trying to get a unification coming, and this is the change, remember? Salvation from the East. It's part of it. But with all this war breaking out, this Pope of reputation of being a bridge builder, I think he's going to go to Moscow. If God spares him 5, 10 years, he'll be going to Moscow with all these anniversaries coming up by 2031. And remember, what I've just done now, because of that Flame of Love conference, incentivised me to read more of the diary of Elizabeth Kinderman on the Flame of Love, which began in 1962. So all these great anniversaries coming by 2031, that great jolt that she writes about, that time where we pray the unity prayer, the great jolt, and how we're going to look at each other as if we were in heaven, basically. That is the illumination of conscience of Garabandal. That's what I believe. So Garabandal spoke of the 4 more popes, then we're in the new era. Done. The tribulation's still to come, which I think we're starting to see warm up. I still don't know what the spark's going to be to attack the Catholic Church. I don't know what the spark's going to be. But what you're seeing is communism returning, as we've been told it would be, from Garabandal and Fatima, etc. And we're seeing an emergence where the church will always be undermined. And I just think with an American pontiff, although he's been out the country of America more than he's been in it, he's a missionary, he's Peruvian, he's Roman now, as he says. I think if you've got tens of millions of Americans, Catholics, and my American friends, you can let me know if I'm right here. But if you great people of America who are Catholic have a choice between what any of your presidents in your life may be doing or saying, and how the country's working with it, and what the Pope may be saying or doing that's in contrary and opposed to your president. You as a Catholic, as a child of God, are you going to say yes to the Pope or yes to your president if you have to pick one? And I think, and of all countries, the deep state, these ones living in the shadows, the stonecutters and all the rest of it, the world powers, they could use this in a way to bring a revolution into the Vatican, just as they would try at Cuba, or what they've been doing along with all the Arab Springtime, country after country divide and then they conquer. Something might give where if it's too much contrast with an American pontiff as they see it, I think that his enemies may be more closer to home than he realises within those shadows. That's one thing. But the fact that the Pope's supposed to bring a sense of peace through these talks and negotiations in Moscow, that's another reason why he'll be seen as an enemy against those who want the war, who want the New World Order. Through that, the chaos and then the New Order, he'll be an enemy of them. And this is where I really think we have to pray so hard for him, because his time and all these prophecies is so vital, and the fact that it's happening in the Jubilee year and we're only approaching the halfway mark says it all. It really, really does. And the other things to back this up then is not just what he's saying and what he's doing with the rudder and the ship as we're seeing. There's a great sense of calm since he became Pope. I just sense it's like, there's a time of reprieve. That's what it feels like, a time of peace right now, while everything else is happening. But going with other things as well, so we've covered Fatima and the confusion of the Lucia writing that down about we thought it was the Holy Father. But then St. Faustina writes in her diary on the day Jorge Bergoglio was born that it was the most painful, suffering day she ever endured, and she offered it up for priests. And then St. Francis is on a quote, apparently, saying how in the future a non-canonically elected pope would have his name. Now, I know people have used this to tarnish Francis over the last 12 years. I'm not doing it for those reasons. What I'm pondering with all them right now is I'm watching more of Leo and the timing, the gap between the last numbered pope in Malachi's list, who was Benedict, and now we see Pope Leo. Francis was the gap. He didn't have the number, and we know now, after all these years of waiting, he isn't Peter the Roman. So who is he? Why was he not counted? And then, coincidentally, these other things fall into place where it's all around about this pope or a pope, and there's confusion from Fatima. There's suffering on the day he was born with Faustina. There's the prophecy of Saint Francis about one who'll take his name. And then this Pope Francis dies on the Jubilee year as we enter the Sabbath millennium, the seventh day, the new era of peace. It's like, it's a bit of mystery with him, yet for all the prophecies to unfold in his pontificate. And here's another one for you. I've already shared it a couple of times. I did a video 5 years ago when I was in Rome. Lightning, it's on Xavier's book, isn't it? Lightning struck the Vatican the very day Benedict announced his retirement. Lightning strikes the Vatican. But no one ever talks about the meteors. As soon as the lightning struck the Vatican that day, and I've got it in an old video, a meteor then lands in Russia within 4 days, I think it was. And of course, Russia's key to the prophecies, as we know, the final solution as well, with Fatima. But then we get the conclave, then we get the Pope elected from Argentina, and then we get another meteor landing in Argentina, his homeland, a couple of days or so later. So, Russian meteor, Argentinian meteor, this time of prophecy with the Pope, with Russia. And then when he died on Easter Monday, I was in Rome, and I've been back, it's me back for the first time in about 11 years since leaving seminary. I was there when he was elected Pope, and as someone reminded me, Mark, we got the first blessing from him at the Vatican when he was on the balcony, and you've returned all these years later to get his final blessing. I was like, whoa. But then I meet up with the Australians, with Yolanda Nardisi, who's been on the channel, good friend of Father Stefano Gobbi, and also of visionary Bruno of Trefontani. Our Lady appeared to both men under the title Virgin of Revelation. She has a lot to share in her videos. Bruno's family met us one day. We went to Trefontani. I've still got more videos to put up on that, folks. It's been a bit delayed. But part of their itinerary was to go to a church a good hour's 2 drive away from Rome, which was Gennenzano, Our Lady of Good Counsel. You probably know where I'm going. The Augustinian friar gave us a great talk and a great tour into the crypts below. And I got up to the glass cabinet, because I've got all these statues of Our Lady of every title and apparition she ever appeared in these crypts. And then there's a slipper in the cabinet, the glass cabinet. It's Pope Leo XIII. And we're in the time between Francis's death and the conclave now in this Easter week. I say, who'll be the next pope to fill these shoes? Of course, I honestly sense we might have had a Pope Leo XIV. And when he was elected, where was the first place he went? He went to Genzano, to the Augustinians, to Our Lady of Good Counsel, and he used that picture at his papal inauguration mass. And I'm intertwining with the places in this time, after all these years back in Rome. I just found it a great time of grace. I didn't go to the funeral because of the crowds. I know what it'd be like, and after a week of walking and travelling, it was good to get a respite while half of Rome was in lockdown anyway, and it was a hot day. I'm in the hotel room, I'm watching the papal funeral on the TV. I had a quick scroll through the Facebook, as you do, and this is the point. Remember, the last Pope's Peter the Roman, and the timing of this prophetic Pope, this mysterious time of this Pope, and he's dead. He died on April 21st, Easter Monday of this Jubilee year. April 21st. I'm going through Facebook while watching the papal funeral. It's coming up with jets flying over the Italian monument, the wedding cake it's called in Rome. The official date of Rome's birthday is April 21st. There's two April 21st. Pope dying and Rome's birthday. I was like, oh, Peter the Roman. But something just clicked. Go back in those dates I researched for the video 5 years ago. The Argentinian meteor landed on April 21st, 2013. April 21st, 2013 was the meteor. April 21st, 2025, Jubilee year, he dies. What's the chances? What are the chances? And if that ain't good enough, remember the prophecy of the long reigning Queen of England would pass, as we see in the top right here in this pontificate, would see mass Muslim immigration into the continent, and at the same time Russia would be back in the warpath. Iran and Israel's relationship would break. It's all happened. And get this, the Queen's birthday is also April 21st. She would have been 99 years of age the day Pope Francis died. So April 21st is the birthday of Rome. We're waiting for Peter the Roman. April 21st was the meteor in Argentina. April 21st he died. April 21st is the Queen's birthday. And this Pope, with the death of her and all the prophecies combined, you just can't make that up. And I just think that sealed it off. The Jubilee year's still underway, and we're seeing the toys out the pram for the devil because his time's running out. And now we have a good Pope that's coming across very well, very orthodox with marriage and family. He's even on record saying about these ancient orthodox liturgies and how they must never be lost. And I'm like, well, if he's saying that about the orthodox ones, how's he feeling about our own ancient liturgies that Francis was very much trying to dampen down and whatever else? This time of division seems to be less and less, and it's more getting massaged out, as his brother said. And he's talking with Putin. He's trying to make peace no matter where. He's making peace with the Orthodox, and you're starting to see why salvation will come from the East, why part and parcel with Russia and Kiev and all these things happening in the East. This is why I believe she appeared in Fatima, because Fatima is Muhammad's most beloved daughter, and she's in the Quran, and there's only one woman that gets a higher place in the whole of the Quran with her own book, is Miriam, Mary, the mother of Jesus. And I believe, like other places, these permanent signs, these miraculous events to come, Garabandal, Medjugorje, and wherever else, it's going to bring the Muslims into the Catholic Church. It's going to bring the Jews into the Catholic Church. And you imagine Israel, Jews, Muslims converting overnight after what they're seeing. This is why the stage is being set. This is how the chess pieces are getting moved. And it looks like chaos. It looks bad. It's war. it's starvation, it's genocide, it's persecution, and it's going to get worse quickly. Anytime this year, as soon as that, commencing into the next few years as we approach these big anniversaries by 2031 for sure, it's really, really going to be hard going. So you need, if you ain't been taking it serious as of even up till this beginning of this year, you better be taking it serious now. And I don't mean to frighten you with it. I'm not frightened. Maybe I'm daft, maybe I'm desensitized, but please God, it's by divine grace of persevering with rosaries and fasting and confession each month and reading and learning and seeing all this confirming my faith more and more because it's happening. And I say, Lord, I choose you. I choose you. I choose heaven. I choose your will. Help me make it through. And I bring the messages, living them, living the gospel, because that is the only thing that's going to get us through it. Even if it means suffering, we'll suffer gladly. Even if it means martyrdom, we'll spread our hands as the Lord did and said, "Into your hands, Lord, I commend my spirit." One more martyr for the church, one more seed being planted for the growth of the church, because it's the blood of the martyrs that paved the way for the seeds of the church. Remember that. And come to mind, St. Pio did say the blood of the European martyrs would pay for the great miracle of Garabandal. So the warning comes up to 12 months before the miracle. It could be a month, it could be 3 months, but it's within a year, within 12 months, which means the martyrs have paid for it. So between now and the warning, there's going to be a lot of persecution on the church. There's going to be a lot more happening within Europe and the Middle East as well. Because if Russia and China have to take on NATO and the West and America, they can't do it head on and survive the other side. What world would be left for them to enjoy after everything's fired, including nuclear warheads? There's nothing to be alive for, is there? They're going to weaken their enemies in the West, and this is why I believe, as prophecy states, looking at it objectively, civil war's going to get worse and worse with the divisions, with all this mass Muslim immigration, and with attacking Iran and whatever's going to happen next. Is that the spark as a revolution's coming, and it's mainly military-age fighting men? You need to think of these things. It's pondering in the heart after all. So this is where I'm kind of at with it all, and I really see the intensity of it more and more and more. And I'm just going to have a few minutes. I thought I was going to get something else up. I've kind of forgot my way of thinking where I was with it. But there's that image I was there. The Ark of the Covenant. The priests carrying the Ark and everyone else behind. Now I look at this as the Praetorians, the cohorts, the legions, the battalions or whatever, regiments, whatever you want to call it. This is your prayer warriors. These are your divine mercy. These are your Legion of Mary. This one is your flame of love. These are all, and all the weapons they have is the rosary. And look at this guy down here. He's sounding the trumpet. He's sounding the trumpet. Why? The Jubilee year. And I'm thinking like Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum said the year before the pandemic, they anticipated a great pandemic that will spread across the world. Last year, they were anticipating a pandemic of the internet coming as early as 2025. And you know what? This building up of the world of the Antichrist's time is now about to crumble, because as the faithful walked with the Ark of the Covenant around Jericho 7 times in silence, and then they blew the trumpet, they blew the sound of the Jubilee, the walls came tumbling down. And you watch the second half of 2025 of this Jubilee year. Remember, the Jubilee's 50 years, 2025 to 2075. And if they're already, these enemies of the Lord are already anticipating a pandemic of the internet, and if it comes as soon as they predicted the last pandemic, bang on, then the next 6 months into next year, you might just see the crumbling of the internet, the crumbling of the financial system, social media, the chaos that will be ensued just from the internet having some sort of pandemic. And the reason it's crumbling down is because we're sounding the horn of Jubilee, just like they did at Jericho, and it's about to come falling down. And this is where the people of God must be prepared spiritually above all else. But I don't think there's any harm having water and food and all that type of prepper stuff done as well. I speak about it more than I do it, I have to admit. But I am taking it on my stride. And I wouldn't say get obsessed with it because it can take over. But I think being practical, and if you say, oh, the Lord will provide everything, yes, He certainly can, but will He? You don't know that. Unless He specifically spoke to you the way He spoke to these mystics and saints and visionaries. Because Noah had to build the ark. And how many years did that take? How much hard labour did that take? The Egyptians got notice before the 7-year famine, and they prepped for that, stockpiled the foods. Joseph had to bug out with Mary when Herod were looking to kill him. So don't say God doesn't make a prepper out of us. Yes, he fed the 5,000 as well, but I think you have to be practical. Don't just assume it. I think presumption, the sin of presumption, ain't a good thing. But our hope is in the Lord. Right, so I see we've got a good couple of hundred and odd people here. Carl Thomas, first one I've seen in the latest ones. Yes, Marie Julie Jahenny's prophecy is certainly unfolding. She's never got one thing wrong yet. Everything's came to pass. And to think it's all happening just as she said, the Queen, the nations, the timing of this prophetic time of popes, the Jubilee year. I think 15, 20 years ago, people were wondering about Garabandal and the times, people were this and that, but see, because we're in the time of information, we know certain things is happening now, and it's, that way you start filling up the jigsaw quicker because you've got the hard work done. Things speeding up towards the end, that saying again. That's where I think it is, to the point where we always believe maybe God was mystery. This was always mysterious, we'll never know, so don't pay too much attention to it. No, give it some attention. Because when you give it attention, as I've done, and I'm not the one deep diving, research and studying for hours, most of this stuff just came to me through one conversation or another, through hearing something at one time, maybe reading the odd book. It was never a superior focus, never has been. But the more I see it, the more I had to piece it together a little bit, and wait a minute here, wow. The finesse of detail from God is absolutely immense. And if you give yourself a bit of time and don't be ignorant to it and just shove it off, you will realise, as I have and as others have, that the information is there. He is holding nothing back. This should not be mysterious, certainly not now. This is as obvious as the nose in our faces. It's as clear as day. And while we ponder some things, because we don't have all the pieces of the jigsaw, it's very much taking shape. We're seeing it emerge more and more clearer. No doubt about it. Neve, thanks very much. Now, Mark, he's speaking to and through you in the whole time. Everything you're saying is spot on, and I'm sure resonates with lots of others as well as me. Well, please God, it is. That's what it's all about. It's not for me to get anything out of it. It's just that conviction I had in my heart, want to do these videos long before the pandemic. The pandemic brought about more channels than ever with all this stuff. I was wanting to do it since 2014 after leaving Rome, but I was too mixed up in the head spiritually and everything else, and it kind of went all different ways before Medjugorje set me right 2 years ago, and this is what you see now, thanks to that. Carl Thomas again. Marie-Julie Gehenna also stated the French government's head will flee. This will happen before the coming of King Henry of the Cross. Yep. France is the spark, as she said, and again, I'm probably best to read over Xavier's book and other sources with it, because we need to keep our eyes on France. The rhetoric between France and Russia now, since America's took a step back with the Ukraine stuff, it's England and France and like the rest of Europe is trying to force this war through. Why? There's reasons for it, and these are people that you cannot trust. But the rhetoric with France and Russia, and now Russia's again this week, Russia's claiming it has intelligence that the UK is very much involved with the Ukrainians in this war. They're doing simulations of attacking the UK. Keir Starmer last Monday just says the UK is now preparing to be war ready, and an increase in the GDP of so many billions are getting put into defence. New carriers, new drone technology, AI, all for warfare. All happening right now, as of this week. This is the headlines I'm seeing. Yeah, there's a bit of mystery to me that might be an area I need to do more. I always thought the Antichrist would be Jewish since they're still waiting for a Messiah, but it's looking like a Freemason could be it too. Very much the case, maybe both. I'm not too sure or how important it has to be about a Jew or that, but I do definitely find when you see the amount of stuff with the stone cutters getting mentioned since Quito, Ecuador in the 1500s right through till today, there's something in it for sure. Carl's bumping in on that. According to scripture and confirmed by Dr. Taylor Marshall, the Antichrist will be a Jew from the tribe of Dan. Thanks for that, Carl. I'm just going back. Let's see some random ones. Marie, I appreciate your graphics. Well, thanks very much. Simple as they are. Your analysis is so timely. Being first generation American Irish, I follow what's happening in Ireland and England. Keep up the good work. Thank you very much. And please keep me in your prayers and help with the channel by, sharing the videos and that. That's how it helps reach as many souls as possible. And on that note, Marie, we need to talk about a lot of good stuff, don't we? Even from the same sources. They let us see this stuff. And I'm going to get on to that because I think it's important. Now, before I do, I'm just going to go back to full screen and I'll finish off with what someone sent me in an email. I don't want to say who the person is because it was private correspondence between us just being in touch. And make sure I don't get who the person is up on screen. I'll just read it. This was an email sent to me this week from someone who knows the scriptures inside out, spent a lifetime studying them, studying prophecies and everything else. Who keeps a cool head and is staying away from all the social media because they're focusing on being ready to meet the Lord, whether it's based on their own life, their circumstances, or the times we live in. And this is what the person said. It's a long email, I'll maybe just pick up some of it. But I'm getting to the good news in a moment. Dear Mark, greetings to you in the precious name of Jesus. Nice to hear from you. Here is a different scenario for you. What is obvious to those who have eyes is that what is happening on earth on the surface of things and what is going on under the radar are very different. On the surface, we have Trump trying hard to create chaos while talking peace. The Old Testament prophets got that ruse. Jeremiah 8, 6, chapters 8 and chapter 6, Ezekiel chapter 13. I've got some verses there. And without realizing it, Trump is doing exactly what the one world crowd wants, even though he says that he is against them, which is to create chaos so that the Antichrist can appear as the peacemaker and the political savior. His MAGA program, Make America Great Again, will bring America down, while the Yellowstone Park volcano is getting noisier. If it blows, it will set up the San Andreas Fault, and both of them will destroy America and create a nuclear winter for the rest of us. This fault is overdue now. Are you looking forward to a trip there? No. Then we have China, making moves to become the dominating world power. I have discovered that Russia is afraid of them, but naturally won't speak about it. In the meantime, the Russian bear continues to pound Ukraine with neither side making extraordinary gains, apart from killing countless thousands of soldiers on both sides and destroying as much of Ukraine as it can get away with. But the bear has its sights on Europe, which is undefended. It's there for the picking. China will let Russia take Europe before it tries to take Russia. Russia will do the dirty work for China. On top of that, these nations have decided that it is time to suppress the Roman Catholic Church. I don't know if they will go after all Christians because the others don't have the obvious external structures that the Roman Catholic Church has. Even in Ireland, we are going to see a repeat of what Henry VIII did in his day. The suppression of the monasteries, convents, and churches will supply plenty of good land and treasure for their coffers. What was done before will happen again. I could go on, but you get the picture. Now, under the radar, the Lord is rebuilding his church stone by living stone. This time, what St. Peter said will come true. 1 Peter 2:5. This time the Lord is not building external structures, but he wants a spiritual house where every stone is another Christ. This new church will be the body of Christ in all its glory, like him in every way. At the moment, this is theoretically correct. People think that the stone building down the road is the church, whereas it is just a building housing the Blessed Sacrament, which is neglected by the majority. The living reality of the church that meets in my house, I should have said, the living reality of the church that meets in my house, commas, is unknown to most, but was the normal reality of the early church in Acts and Romans, beginning with the cenacle in Jerusalem. Then we have all the end time stuff that everyone is talking about. Our Blessed Mother revealed to Don Gobi that the book of Revelation was being fulfilled in the 1990s. From what I experienced then, I realized that this was fact. I don't want to revisit this again, apart from saying that one of the seers was warned before Leo was chosen that the wolves had not gone anywhere. I think that Leo will suffer greatly, like John Paul II. They will make a saint out of him, but if he dares to go against the wolves who are deeply embedded in the Vatican system, he may not live long. I'm refusing to conclude anything here. But I wonder if you read the latest message and so forth of others. Not going on any more YouTube. We need silence to let God do his work in us, to cut and polish his new stones and make sure that they are in the right place. That's most of the email said. Now, a couple of things I'm going to say, because I did read prophecy years ago how Russia would get into Europe and the same time China would get into Asia. But why would China want to take into Russia when the rest of the world would be against China anyway? It needs its allies, so I don't get it. But there are prophecies out there about that, actually. And again, they've got their reasons why they would want to suppress the church and take over and persecute it. But how are they going to win the people over in Christian Europe in the next few years if this is to happen? And it does make you wonder, what is the church? We, the mystical body of the church, we are the church. And I just kind of find that when the pandemic did come, that's one thing I think we realised when we couldn't get to Mass and receive communion. You know, the Sunday liturgy, the Sunday mortal sin stuff and all this. And although it's still in place, it was a way of coming to understand the Lord in a more personal way in that time of quietness when churches were closed, and we are the churches. Not just about having a screen online church or Mass service online, but really a point where we can listen more, just like that email was saying. And there's so much more happening, folks, and this goes back to what you were saying, Marie, with Ireland and stuff like that. As you know, from February 2nd there, it was Feast Day of Candlemas. That weekend, it was like the Feast Day of St. Bridget of Sweden, St. John Bosco, Feast Day of the Candlemas. There's so much happening. And that Eucharistic procession in Derry, for the first time in centuries, happened. 5,000 people turned up. They were claiming to relight the fire from the prophecy of St. Patrick, where he saw darkness over Ireland, he saw darkness over Europe and the world, and it was just left with kindling coals. But then a flame shot up from the north, Derry, where the procession was. Derry is the spiritual heart of Ireland, and this came just weeks after, if that, a couple of weeks after Derry girl, now servant of God, Sister Claire Crockett, Claire meaning light from the north, had her cause of canonization opened, and the Irish, filled with zeal, processed with the Lord and our Blessed Mother's icons, the new Ark of the Covenant, just like this image shows us. This was the procession in Derry. And it ain't just that. Through family ties and friendships across the globe, 70 locations in 6 continents joined in that same day for the same purpose of witnessing the faith, claiming the prophecy. The light has been relit in this Jubilee year. And this is how we're winning it about. And do you know, since February to Easter, I was at the seminary, the English seminary, having the Triduum, and the vigil, Saturday vigil, Easter vigil, the rector gave a great and inspirational homily where he began telling us about the statistics just published by YouGov and how they had to get double checks done with another third-party company, apparently, to see if this was true. But Catholic attendance is through the roof. Baptisms through the roof, conversions all happening and it's just as that email stated, that what's happened in King Henry VIII's time is going to come round again. But the statistics are showing right now that for the first time since King Henry VIII in the Reformation, there are more Catholics going to church than Anglicans, 2-1. And amongst the most going to church and being brought into the church are young men. It has quadrupled since 2018. And this is the stuff we don't see in the news. This is the stuff I don't see as easy in the prophecies as the stuff I've shown. But as Pope Leo said recently, and I loved it, he says, God still speaks in the whispers. And if this wasn't brought to my attention, how would I have known? It's not in the mainstream media, but it's in the whispers. And then the flame of love, which I'm new to, and I was invited to the conference last week to speak alongside great priests as Father Jim Blunt and Father Chris Aylar. I see how the flame of love fits. Now get this. Out of meeting these men, these great figures who I've seen on YouTube over the years, and out with meeting many wonderful people who are speaking my same language and even mentioning the videos and all that stuff, there was a nun who gave a 10-minute talk from Ireland, of all places. And she's talking away, and then she's mentioning Medjugorje and the refugee camp, and I'm like, I was there in 2006, which was my first ever pilgrimage to Medjugorje. And I went into my phone and I went back in all the photos in my Facebook albums where I used to put a lot up, and I see a picture of the nun in normal clothes with a family at the refugee place, and I go up to the nun the next day and say, I meant to ask you, sister, is this you? She, oh yes, that's me, and that's such a family, and how I helped them, and she knew everything like that. Now, out of the whole conference of 3 days, this was the highlight for me. This is how my radar's working. The Irish connection, first of all, the Medjugorje connection, but there's more. In the diary of Elizabeth Kinderman in The Flame of Love, one, she speaks about the great procession at Candlemas and all that stuff which people in Derry took with the feast day back in February, with that great procession which was around the world on 6 continents. But in the diary of Elizabeth Kinderman, she also speaks about a certain religious group of nuns who will spread the flame of love. And I'm not sure if she mentions England and all the rest of it as well. But the nuns live near me, like a 5-minute walk away, are these nuns mentioned in the diary. And this nun, Sister Josephine, is at the Flame of Love conference in this city of Birmingham. At the same time I'm there, she's part of this congregation mentioned by Mystic Elizabeth Kinderman in the Flame of Love diary. I'm neighbours with those nuns, more or less. And since 2006, where it was the one and only time I met her, she's now in front of me after all these years in this city, the Flame of Love conference, part of that religious community. I've been asked to talk about these times. I'm learning how the Flame of Love picks in, and that's me and her making it. And it's not just for me and her to talk as a coincidence. It's the fact that the nuns living near me are mentioned in it. And I'm like, Lord, what are you wanting of me? Why am I here? I don't need to discern big vacations anymore because the vacation is made. I'm married. It's done. So I don't need to discern about priesthood or marriage or whatever. It's done. That's my vacation first and foremost. No doubt about it. But how to still do God's work? Anything else he wants, whether it's YouTube, whether it's job, whether it's careers, whether it's, I don't know, anything. And just with her being there after all these years, since 2006, and all these connections making it around that, and it's all the Scottish people that are setting up the Flame of Love in Birmingham. And then someone says, yeah, well, remember Queen Margaret, Saint Margaret of Scotland was Hungarian. That's where Flame of Love comes from, with Elizabeth Kinderman. So I'm like, oh, I've got a scent, I need to work on that one. What's next? So that's enough for me to say, right, Lord, I'm sensing something here with these connections. What do you want of me? We don't give God our ability. We give him our availability. Do with me as you will. And I'm keen to speak with the sisters now to see the connection with it, because the mother, Sister Regina, made a prophecy many years ago as how Birmingham would be the fire for England's revival. And then we hear this of Derry revival, St. Patrick's prophecy, the fire, the flame of love, the fire of the Holy Spirit. And this Jubilee year of all years, with everything already said, the good and the bad, the flame has been lit, it's starting to spread. The YouGov statistics are showing us the flame is spread, and the whispers with the amount of people coming back into the church. The fire is growing, folks, and this is the change that people won't let you know. This is probably why they want to get rid of the internet and all the rest of it's going to happen, because we're winning the fight. God's winning the fight, and He's about to turn things upside down. She's about to crush His head, and we know it. And this is why I'm not afraid of these things occurring. I'm excited because I know I'm in the battle, and I know I'm in that crowd right in front of you in that picture. I'll take the two horns and the trumpets at the same time if the Lord wants me to, and I'll be banging on the drums because I've got the drums behind me. So yeah, I'll get myself going a little bit, but make your choice. Make it now. This very second, take a moment. Lord, I don't know the words to say. I don't know what to think or feel. I just know I want to be in heaven. I know I don't want fear in my heart. I want hope. I want love. I choose you. And I remember saying that when I was at my worst a few years back at the pandemic, mixed up with everything of seminary, probably spiritual oppression, since I've learned more about it through Father Upperger and others. It's all been dealt with. But at that time where I was empty and nothing, and then the pandemic kicked in, the only thing I could say in prayer after being empty for so long, I choose you, Lord. I'm a mess. I'm not going to Mass. I'm not praying. I'm angry. I'm spiteful. I'm vengeful. I'm fed up. I'm anxious. I'm a mess. But I see what's happening, and my knowledge, I know what's happening. I just don't know how to get out of this rut. But I choose you. My free will right now, I'm declaring, I choose you. I choose your divine will. I choose to help Mother Mary. I choose heaven. I say yes to you and no to the devil. And that was it. That was the turning point. And here we are. So yeah, give your God your availability. Don't think, oh, I've got these skills and these talents. If God wants to use them, He will. But it's when you're weak, then you're strong. Less of me, more of Him. And that's why I think she chooses so many times to appear to children. Keep it simple. And everything I do is like, keep it simple. Because that's how we get the answers. But it's definitely exciting times, folks. And the next thing I want to be getting into is finally got the blue book over from Yolanda in Australia. Father Stefano Gobbi, Our Lady's beloved, to the priests, Our Lady's beloved sons, the Marian movement of priests. And I opened up at a few pages because in this, Our Lady apparently explains to him all about Book of Revelation, the beast and all this stuff as well. And I did have one earlier, Time of the Great Trials, a whole chapter in its own. But there was a few pages I was looking back at. I don't know. Oh, let's see. Here's a random one for you. I'll finish up soon with this. Page 829. My times have arrived. My beloved sons, great is the joy which during these days you give to your Heavenly Mother. You have come from many parts of the United States and Canada to live with me in a continuous cenacle of prayer and fraternity. I join myself to your prayer. I help you to grow in mutual love so as to become one heart and one soul. I pour balm on your wounds. I give comfort to your numerous sufferings, and I encourage you to walk with trust and with great hope along the painful road of these last times. My times have arrived. The times which I foretold in Fatima have come. Today you are commemorating the anniversary of my last apparition, which was confirmed by the miracle of the sun. At that time I foretold to you everything you are now experiencing in these years of the purification and the great tribulation. I foretold to you the great chastisement which would strike this poor humanity, which has become pagan and built a new civilization without God, and which is threatened by violence, by hatred, by war, and which is running the risk of destroying itself by its own hands. How true that is today. My extraordinary interventions, which I have worked in order to bring humanity back onto the road of conversion and of its return to the Lord, have been neither accepted nor believed. Well, they have been here. So it is now that you find yourselves at the vigil of the great trial which I foretold to you. It will be the supreme manifestation of the divine justice and mercy. Fire will descend from heaven, and humanity will be purified and completely renewed, so as to be ready to receive the Lord Jesus, who will return to you in glory. Talk about landing on a good page, eh? After all's been said. I also foretold to you the great crisis which would take place in the church. This was meant to be. This is covering everything I've just been talking about over the past hour. Honestly, this was a random page. I was looking for the page it was meant to be from earlier, but here we are. I also foretold to you the great crisis which would take place in the church because of the great apostasy which has entered into her, caused by an even wider diffusion of errors, by her interior division, by opposition to the Pope, and by the rejection of his magisterium. This most beloved daughter of mine must live the hours of her agony and of her sorrowful passion. She will be abandoned by many of her children. This impetuous wind of persecution will blow against her, and much blood will be shed, even by my beloved sons. And so I invite you to follow me along the road of prayer and penance, of purity and holiness. See how your countries have become victims of materialism and of the unbridled search for pleasure. The law of God is being more and more violated. Impurity is being advertised through all the means of social communication. Recourse is being had to every means of impeding life. Abortions are increasing everywhere and are being legitimized by unjust and immoral laws. Tell everyone to enter into the ark of my immaculate heart, in order to be protected and saved by me. I request that you multiply your cenacles of prayer among priests, among children, among the youth, and especially in families. I have been consoled by the very great response which I received in Canada and in the United States during these cenacles. Never before have they seen a participation in such great numbers on the part of both priests and faithful. Because of the generous response which I am receiving everywhere from my littlest children, I promise to intervene to save you in the hour of the great trial. My maternal presence among you is the sure sign of protection and of salvation. Open your hearts, therefore, to hope, and live in the greatest trust and in complete abandonment to my Immaculate Heart. With your dear ones and with the persons entrusted to you, I bless you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. This was in Illinois, USA, October 13th, 1994, anniversary of the last apparition at Fatima. It was the spiritual exercises in the form of a cenacle with the bishops and priests of the Marian movement of priests from the United States and Canada. What else is there to say? Talk about bang on message, open up random. I want to get into the Blue Book because of the stories I was being told in Rome by Yolanda, who was friends with Father Gobbi. Bruno of Trefontane. 3 generations of family were there to welcome us at the grotto, and then took us to the community house where we had a lovely lunch and some more stories. And then, of course, going into Bruno's living quarters, his bedroom, his office, where Our Lady appeared many times teaching him the catechism. And do you know his son, I think it was Carlo, he was one of the children who saw Our Lady back in 1947, April 12th. And he says he can remember everything. He can remember what they were wearing, what they were playing, what was happening that day, how Our Lady's dress. He remembers everything, except in his memory, he can't picture her face. But he says it's a gift. He says, because if I have to see her face one more time, I would surely die. She was so beautiful, so loving. He would surely die. And for all that's happening, that message says it all. Tell everyone to enter into the ark of my immaculate heart. Just the picture up there with the ark. And that's what she says at Fatima. My immaculate heart will be your refuge and the path that leads you to God. So don't use all this in the way think we're going to escape everything that's coming. It's how we accept what's coming gladly for the glory of God. And if that means martyrdom, or if that means procreating after it all, it doesn't matter. But our Blessed Mother's got a lot in hand, and she's been given so much from the Lord for us. So, yeah, I think we'll maybe leave it in that note, folks, because time has gone on. Oh my, an hour and 50 minutes. Time flies when you're having fun. Let's have a last look at some of the messages here. Eliminating ink. I wonder too if our times have returned to the same wickedness in the times Jesus came into the world, and if there were the same issues like transgender, etc. Seems like time's repeating itself. Well, time definitely repeats itself. Prophecies come round again. That's the typology, hermeneutics come in. So what history has a habit of repeating itself. It might just unfold in different ways, but it's the same. It's the same thing coming round for sure. I think we're in the times of Noah and Sodom and Gomorrah combined. And I think I heard Scott Hannon, an old cassette tape from years ago, quoting someone else who basically says if God doesn't act in the sins of America alone, never mind the rest of the world in these days, he owes Sodom and Gomorrah a personal apology. So yeah, judge by the signs of the times. Why would it be different now? Like he's never been different before. It's unbiblical if he does nothing. Think about it. We're still in the Bible. We're still in the times of Revelation. But we're about to enter into the time of the triumph. And I just think, if martyrdom is the call, can we do it? And it's not a choice just of courage to say yes. And I don't want to go like Peter at the Last Supper and then only to deny him a couple hours later. That's human strength. But I think his conviction and his heart was in the right place. But he took his eyes off Jesus. He wasn't getting everything he was supposed to get, where it's been repeated and repeated and repeated to us for all these decades and centuries. And I think, as John writes in his first letter, you know you've reached the fullness of love when you can face the day of judgment with no fear in your heart. That's when we know we've reached the fullness of love. And I want to be like St. Catherine Labouré, with that smile, uncorrupt body, looking up with a smile. That's how I want to go. That's the aim of the game. I see you're having a little chat amongst yourselves. I hope Cat from Edinburgh, good to have you here. England, Scotland's return. Do you see this happening? Do you think Ireland first and then the rest? Definitely, because I think although England's to go through a great civil war and a great bloody revolution, literally as it was called, I think the monarchy's to disappear and whatever else. I need to find the sources again. But I'm sure, was it Louisa Piccarreta that spoke about, we know Russia's to come and glorify God the most from Medjugorje Fatima sources, but I'm sure it was Louisa Piccarreta that I've been told spoke about how England will convert and England will help Russia to spread the faith again and re-evangelize the world. And Derek Williams told us that a few years ago, remember Our Lady of Walsingham? It's the national shrine. This was the big one before modern days. It was England's Jerusalem, I think, a great pilgrimage site, and it's the dowry of Mary. Now, there's a prophecy from Edward the Confessor. It says, when England returns to Walsingham, Our Lady will return to England. Edward the Confessor said that centuries ago. Now, when the new monarch, whether it's Queen Elizabeth or King Charles or whoever, they go on the chair in the cathedral, the screens come round them, and the bishop anoints the chest with the oil and whatever else happens. But the chair, the ancient chair that the monarch sits on at the coronation, is known as Edward the Confessor's chair. There's literally a big boulder brick underneath the chair, which Edward the Confessor, would have sat on, I believe. Now, if he's making the prophecy that when England returns to Walsingham, Our Lady will return to England. A few years ago, the statue of Our Lady of Walsingham, which she's sitting down, isn't it? I'm sure it's a sitting statue. I need to double check it, because anytime you see Our Lady sitting, it's a sign of the queenship. Anyway, the statue of Walsingham was going around the cathedrals of the United Kingdom, and then it went to Westminster. Apparently they asked for it to come, and when it was in Westminster Abbey, or cathedral, whatever, they placed it on Edward the Confessor's chair, which happens for the monarch at the coronation. So Our Lady of Walsingham has literally been queened, or confirmed as Queen of England, on the throne of Edward the Confessor, who made that prophecy many centuries ago. And look where England is right now in these last few years. Catholic Church is 2-1 against the Anglicans in terms of church attendance. Amongst the Gen Z population, it's a majority of young men coming in and all the rest of it. So we're seeing a lot of good from it. And coming from Scotland, like anywhere else, there is a strong remnant of the faith. And I'm ignorant to the saints of our land here in the UK and Scotland. But again, we need to know our heritage. And I think when we know our heritage, we're going to realise how important everything adds up. It's not just what saint's popular and who I pray to, but look at St. Serve, St. Columba, St. Margaret, many other saints, John Duns Scotus, and who else we can think of. Do we read up on them? Do we pray to them anymore? You know? So there's definitely going to be something. And I remember someone, I think it was a priest who had a van from Medjugorje over in Scotland. And I've met Ivan a few times from Scotland and at Medjugorje. And this priest says, because I think he went to Carfin Grotto, which is in Motherwell Diocese, the National Shrine of Scotland, and I'm sure it was him. Might not have been, but I think it was him. After his apparition, he was talking to the priest. The priest told me sometime later, Our Lady said to him, she longs to be in Scotland. You know, so I like that. It's like, don't forget the Scots, you know. And look at the troop in Colour of the Day, the Scots Guards. And as Xavier said with the French monarch, it was the Scots that done a lot there as well. So, and the McLean clan apparently helped with the Jacobite uprising in defence of the Catholic faith. And when I heard McLeans were doing that, I was like, Mark John McLean is my name. So Mark, the Roman god of war, John is servant of the apostle or the Lord, McLean, defender of the faith. It was like the Roman warrior for the Lord, defender of the faith. I loved it. So, and again, Hungary connection with Elizabeth Kindelman is the new thing. Why is it the Scots setting up Flame of Love here, UK and England, near the sisters mentioned in the diary of Elizabeth Kindelman? And then we find out the Hungarian connection goes back to Queen Margaret, Saint Margaret of Scotland, who was Hungarian. So that's something I need to work on. But yeah, don't forget our own saints. I was in the Carthusian monastery years ago for a week as a come and see and discernment, and you're looking at those graves with just a cross above the mounts, and you think of some of the early martyrs at the Reformation and the Carthusians, and you're standing there looking at this moment of history, where they must be in the heavens right now. We should not be ignorant of it. Sandy, I think we need to save as many souls as possible. Flame of Love. What got me with the Flame of Love, that unity prayer, was may our eyes penetrate one another ever more deeply, or something like that. And I did a retreat a few weeks ago, and that was the thing that got me. We all lined up, the retreatants and the staff, and the goodbye was not words, it was silence. And you went and you went side by side at the beat of the drum to the next guy, to the next guy, boom, to the next guy. 10 seconds later, boom, you go to the next guy. And all you're doing for each one of them, there were about 18, we just look at them straight. And then the beat of the drum to the next, and you just look at them straight. And that was us saying everything we had to say through the eyes. And that broke a few guys. I even broke a couple of the staff, like crying. And if we sinners can penetrate each other like that with trying to bring forth love, thanksgiving, sharing of the faith, seeing another fellow human being, the dignity, child of God, and just looking at them in the eye, and it brings the tears. That unity prayer, when we're completely sanctified after the great jolt, the purification that's coming with this illumination of conscience, how we will be looking at each other as if we're in heaven in the Sabbath day, the Sabbath millennium, the era of peace, the era of divine will. No more sin, no more hurt, no more violence, no more war. Peace, 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 love, joy, looking at one another. So may our eyes ever look in each other more deeply. That line got me because of my recent experience in that retreat. Powerful stuff. But when we say the words, let's take our time to digest them and mean them, for sure. Yeah, may our glances penetrate each other. Love it. Focus your gaze, as Vicky Smith says. Do what love requires. And that's how we reach the fullness of love, when we can face the day of judgment with no fear in our hearts. Yeah, great stuff, folks. Well, sorry, I never realised it's been 2 hours. You've been great company. Enjoy seeing a lot, and hopefully what I've came through has been good. I know there's more happening, more coming, but when it goes back to that timeline, when it goes back to these anniversaries that are approaching, when it's telling us we're in the final solution, which is Russia and Kiev. And remember, we've all got a place to do. And I left on a note at that conference. I had a couple of quotes. Pope Benedict was like, each of us is the result of a thought of God. We're not an accident. We're a deliberate thought of God made real, made in the flesh. Each of us is willed, each of us is loved, each of us is necessary. And as the great Mother Angelica put it in her witty way, I don't care if you're 5 or 105, God from all eternity chose you to be where you are at this time in history to change the world. And one of my favourite quotes as of the past several months, and it's part of this year's Birmingham conference, the Catholic Charismatic Renewal Conference, which is happening in a few weeks' time, so make sure you look it up. I'll go try and get a promo for it. St. Catherine of Siena. Be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire. And we're already doing it in Derry, we're doing it in Birmingham, we're doing it in Perth, Australia, and other places around the world. We're setting it on fire with the flame of love, the Holy Spirit, and it's certainly in the works for sure this Jubilee year. And on that note, folks, I'm going to say good night. God bless. Thanks for tuning in. Please share and subscribe. Get as far and wide to reach as many souls as possible. I have 2 talks recorded of Father Chris Aylar at the conference, which I'm going to start putting up as of tomorrow. I've also got Father Jim's video, Father Jim Blunt, but I believe his superior doesn't want any of them to be played. There was a bit of confusion and correspondence with the team, so I might not be able to publish his, but I might do one talking about the experience with him and that. But definitely 2 from Father Chris Aylar, and then I think Xavier's always happy to come back on and working with him. I've had an email confirming he's willing to come on with Zachary King, ex-High Wizard Satanist. There's a lot of stuff going on over in Kansas in recent months, as well as a couple other things happening elsewhere, and it'd be good to get him on and give us updates and some more education in the spiritual warfare of things. I've reached out to Father Dan Rehill again, who said last year he'd be happy to come back on to get in touch with him after the new year began, so here I am. I've sent him an email, and I've reached out to a couple others as well, and hopefully get some more interviews coming back. Michael at Garabandal's due to get back to me, hopefully soon. Hopefully we'll get him on, because we've got a good catch up to do after a few months ago. A lot's happened since, and I'm thinking maybe to get into Garabandal for a few nights over the next month or 2. I feel in the last couple of weeks I've had a sense of Garabandal, but I would say I've had a bit of stronger sense to go to La Flede, where Marie-Julie Jahenny's from. Just a couple. It doesn't need to be a long week's pilgrimage, but just a couple of nights maybe. It's only an hour and a half flight, and then a 40-minute drive. But it's working out the travel. That's where it usually gets me stuck. But when I go and I'm in the zone, it goes, you know. But if you've got any information to share, leave it in the comments section in the video, and I'll look at it later about how to get there. I'm alright with Garabandal, but the new place where Marie-Julie Jahenny, I'd like to get there maybe in the next coming month or 2. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, more videos to come. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed with the bell icon hit, because I'll be getting at least one of the videos up tomorrow from Father Aylar. And then I've got Robert Nugent recorded actually. I forgot about that. I'll have him up in the coming days as well. And whatever else I'm bringing together between now and next week as well. So plenty coming, folks. Thanks very much for your time. Have a great night, and God bless. Take care.